You are tuned to Iri-e-learning, and I am your host, Teacher. In this structure and bonding lesson, we will examine allotropy. Check the description box for links to all the videos related to this unit. By the end of this lesson, we should be able to explain the term allotropy, explain how allotropes are formed, identify allotropes of carbon. So what is allotropy? Well, allotropy is the presence of more than one form of an element in the same physical state. Now, the different forms in which the element exists, they are called allotropes. How are allotropes formed? Elements transform from one allotrope to another in response to changes in conditions such as temperature, pressure, and light. So let's review some facts about the allotropes of an element. The atoms of allotropes are arranged differently. They all exist in the same state of matter. They have the same chemical properties, but their physical properties differ. For example, their appearance. Here we are looking at two common allotropes of carbon, which are diamond and graphite. In terms of their physical appearance, it is evident that diamond looks very different from graphite. Diamond is a hard, transparent solid that sparkles, and it's a non-conductor of electricity. However, graphite, on the other hand, is a soft, black, shiny solid. It is slippery, as well as it's an excellent conductor of electricity. Now, one of the main things that we know about allotropes is that the atoms of the element are arranged differently. So if we look at diamond, we see that diamond has a tetrahedral arrangement, while graphite has these interconnected hexagonal ring layers. And the layers are actually held together by weak forces of attraction. Although diamond and graphite consist of carbon atoms covalently bonded together, the structural arrangement of the atoms differ, as we see evidence in the tetrahedral arrangement of the carbons throughout the diamond structure, while there are the interconnected hexagonal ring layers in graphite, which are held together by weak forces of attraction. There are other allotropes of carbon that exist outside of diamond and graphite. One such group of carbon allotropes are called fullerenes. When discovered, these carbon allotropes were initially called Buckminster fullerene, but later the name was changed to simply fullerene to incorporate the many different shapes or forms that exist. Fullerenes are microscopic carbon allotropes that exist currently in two structural forms. The first, hollow cage-like molecules called buckyballs, and the second, cylinders or tubes called carbon nanotubes. Carbon nanotubes are microscopic tubes or cylinders, somewhat like drinking straws, but are approximately 1,000th the diameter of a strand of human hair. Specifically, carbon nanotubes are long, microscopic cylindrical fullerenes. The arrangement of carbon atoms in the carbon nanotube structure is very similar to that of graphite. Each carbon atom in the nanotube structure forms three strong single covalent bonds with three other carbon atoms, as highlighted in red in the diagram. These strong covalent carbon-carbon single bonds extend between the carbon atoms throughout the nanotube. The single covalent bonds are represented by the lines occurring between the tiny circles or balls, which represents carbon. And as you can see, they're extensive. They extend right throughout the nanotube structure. Also, the carbon atoms bond to form interconnected hexagonal rings. That is, the interconnected six-membered rings, similar to what we see in graphite. So if you take a look at this structure here, you can see the six-membered rings or the hexagonal rings being interconnected, forming the entire cylindrical structure. Sometimes the nanotubes may appear as concentric tubes, that is, tubes stacked within tubes. This arrangement increases the strength of the structure. In the diagram, we use three colors to distinguish between the three concentric nanotubes. The outer tube is green, the first inner tube is red, and the innermost tube is blue. Just know that we used three colors only to provide a visual to distinguish distinguish or differentiate between the three tubes that we are illustrating here as concentric tubes. The carbon nanotubes are super slippery and are often added to lubricants to improve their effectiveness in reducing friction. Carbon nanotubes are typically good conductors of electricity and heat. In fact, the longer the nanotube, the higher is its thermal and electrical conductivity. Each carbon in the structure has one unbonded or free electron, which becomes delocalized. These free electrons can move around the entire nanotube. Since nanotubes conduct electricity, they have the potential to be used as miniature wires or sensors in tiny electrical circuits such as computer chips, solar cells, and other electronic equipment. Nanotubes can be stronger than steel, but having only 1/6 the mass or the weight. So in other words, it can be stronger than steel, but it's lighter than steel. In fact, carbon nanotubes can be drawn into very strong carbon fibers. The carbon nanotube fibers are often used to reinforce and make many sport equipment like tennis rackets and golf clubs. So what we have is that it produces a strong, durable, and lightweight equipment. Carbon nanotubes have very high melting point. A lot of energy is required to break the strong covalent bonds that exist between the carbon atoms throughout the structure. Next are the buckyballs. Buckyballs are hollow cage-like spheres consisting of fused or interconnected carbon ring structures. It looks like a football, which is called a soccer ball in some regions. The carbon atoms of a buckyball bond to form fused or interconnected pentagonal and hexagonal rings. Within the buckyball structure, a pentagonal ring, highlighted in black in the buckyball molecule to match the football, is surrounded by 5 hexagonal rings that are numbered on the buckyball and the football. Note that a pentagonal ring has 5 carbon atoms bonded together with 5 sides where the covalent bonds exist, while the hexagonal ring structure has 6 carbon atoms bonding together, as well as it has 6 sides where the covalent bonds exist between the carbon atoms. Therefore, one hexagonal ring is attached to each side of the pentagonal ring. This pattern is repeated throughout the structure of the buckyball. Each carbon atom forms a covalent bond with 3 other carbon atoms, as shown with the red bonds from the central carbon atom to 3 other carbon atoms. Therefore, each carbon atom within the structure has 1 free electron, and that is so because only 3 of the 4 valence electrons were used in bonding, and hence there's 1 electron remaining free to move around, and we say that the electrons are delocalized because they are moving around. Buckyballs, as a result, are good conductors of electricity due to the delocalized electrons, and most buckyballs contain 60 carbon atoms. As a result, they are called C60. The C60 molecule was named Buckminster fullerene after the American architect R. Buckminster Fuller, who designed the geodesic dome structure used in construction, and the buckyball has the same structural principle. Now, weak intermolecular forces exist between buckyballs. As a result, a C60 molecule or a buckyball has a low melting point because very little energy is required to overcome the intermolecular forces between the buckyballs. The weak intermolecular forces also allow the buckyballs to slide past each other, which gives them a very slippery property. Buckyballs are insoluble in water but soluble in organic solvents, forming solutions that vary from the color red to violet. In fact, they are the only soluble allotrope of carbon. Buckyball is a black solid at room temperature. Buckyballs are classified as simple covalent molecules, so each ball is a simple covalent molecule. Here are our lesson summary points. Allotropy is the presence of multiple forms of an element in the same physical state. Allotropes are the different forms in which an element exists. Changes in temperature, pressure, and light lead to the formation of allotropes of an element. Diamond, graphite, and fullerenes are allotropes of carbon. Allotropes of an element exist in the same state of matter. Allotropes have different physical properties but the same chemical properties. Diamond is hard, a non-conductor, and is insoluble with a high melting point. Graphite is soft and slippery, an excellent conductor, and has high melting and boiling points. Most buckyballs contain 60 carbon atoms and are called C60. Buckyballs are slippery and have low melting points due to the weak intermolecular forces between the balls. Carbon nanotubes have high melting points because a lot of energy is needed to break the many covalent bonds existing between the carbon atoms. Carbon nanotubes are slippery and are added to lubricants to increase their effectiveness. Graphite and fullerenes, which include carbon nanotubes and buckyballs, are conductors of electricity due to the existence of delocalized electrons. It's quiz time. You have 5 seconds to answer each question after it is read aloud. Question 1. Which condition does not influence the formation of allotropes? A. Hurricane, B. Temperature, C. Pressure, D. Light. The answer is A. A hurricane does not influence the formation of allotropes. Question 2. Identify the statement that is correct about allotropes. Allotropes of an element: A. All exist in the same state of matter. B. Have the same chemical properties. C. Have different physical properties. D. All of the above. The answer is D, all of the above. So allotropes of an element all exist in the same state of matter. They have the same chemical properties but different physical properties. Question 3. Which of the following is not an allotrope of carbon? A. Diamond, B. Fullerenes, C. Graphite, D. Carbon dioxide. The answer is D, carbon dioxide. Dioxide indicates the presence of oxygen along with the carbon. So carbon dioxide is not an element of carbon. Question 4. Which allotrope of carbon listed below does not conduct electricity? A. Graphite, B. Diamond, C. Buckyballs, D. Nanotubes. The answer is B. Diamond. Diamond does not conduct electricity because all 4 valence electrons are used in bonding. Question 5. Identify the carbon allotrope that has a slippery property. A. Graphite, B. Carbon nanotubes, C. Buckyballs, D. All of the above. The answer is D, all of the above. We have reached the end of our lesson. If you found this video helpful, remember to like, share, and subscribe. When you subscribe, you'll receive notifications as new videos are uploaded. So until next time, I am Teacher with Iri-e-learning.